The time being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Board of Health meeting to order. All members, with the exception of Carol Dolan, are present. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Before I get into the public announcements for tonight, if you are planning to speak regarding the public hearing tonight, we are accepting speakers on the sign-in sheet that is on that table behind you folks there. So if you plan to speak tonight, please make sure you sign in, just so we can keep things moving. We have a lot of people that I'm sure want to say something and be a part of this conversation, and we want to get through it in an organized manner.
And please sign your name really clearly so I can use it for the meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll move on to announcements from the Health Division of the Inspectional Services Department. Mr. Schultz.
A couple of quick announcements, and these are really just reiterated from last week. If you have a broken or damaged trash tote, repairs for those are suspended right now. Our DPW has been very busy clearing out the streets, so the compost site hasn't been cleared out, and I don't have access to the totes at the moment. I also have received some feedback from our trash drivers, and they just ask people, again, understanding that there's a lot of snow and there is not a lot of places to put it. Please don't leave your trash totes behind snowbanks. They are unable to get them, and they will not pick them up if it's behind a snowbank. So end a driveway or clear spot. And the only other announcement is Mass Department of Public Health has launched a foodborne illness complaint site at MassGov. If you Google Report My Meal, there's a form you can fill out if you had got sick at a restaurant. You can also report that directly to the Board of Health here, but if you use the state's form, we will be notified and it goes into a database. So Report My Meal. Check it out.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for the Health Division? Nope.
I do actually. Have you had any use of it yet? Has anyone?
Not through the new portal, no.
Seeing none, we'll move forward into some discussion and action items. Health agent report?
No report today.
No report. Okay, thank you. We were going to approve meeting minutes. I don't believe we have
I'm not
those yet,
ready,
just because the
sorry.
meeting was so close last week, so we will table that for our next discussion, next meeting. Any correspondence from the Health Department or the board to share? No. None? All right, I know we still have folks signing in, so I'm going to start kind of reading a kind of the ground rules of what our public hearing section of our meeting is going to look like while folks continue to sign in, and we can get acquainted with what that process will look like. So we're going to start tonight. We're talking about the stable regulations, so I'll read these for this. This public hearing is to discuss the proposed stable regulations for the town of Abington. Copies of the proposed regulation, a limited amount of copies, just because there are so many pages, are available tonight, and they've also been available online, so if you head to abingtonma.gov, you'll be able to view them there. It is the duty of the Board of Health to promote and protect the public health of the residents of Abington. The board derives its legal authority to enact regulations from the Massachusetts legislature, and except for Title V regulations, it's not legally required for the Board of Health to hold a public hearing. However, the board feels that this is important to provide a public forum. The purpose of this hearing is to collect information and opinions. The board will not ask for a vote from the audience, nor will the board itself vote on proposed regulations at this public hearing. The board will announce the meeting date in which they will discuss and vote on the proposed regulation. The ground rules for the hearing are as follows. Any person wishing to make a comment should sign in. As stated in the beginning, the sign-in sheet is located at the front of the room. When addressing the board, you must identify yourself by name, address, and any professional affiliation that you may have that impacts your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. This will be strictly enforced, and repeat speakers will not be allowed. That being said, we have 2 regulations up tonight. You are allowed to speak on each one of the regulations once each time. Be considerate of those people speaking, whether you agree or disagree with them, and do not comment out of turn. Applauding and booing will not be tolerated. The hearing will be stopped and continue to another date in time if it happens. Board members will not engage in dialogue with commenters, but will accept their testimony. The board will schedule a meeting at which time a discussion and vote will be taken, and no additional testimony will be considered at that time. The last bullet point does require will require a vote of the board if we want to continue accepting written testimony after tonight and until which date. I was going to propose, and I guess I'll make a motion, that we allow written testimony until Friday, February 13th, 2026, at the end of town hall business time, which would be 12:30 PM.
I second that.
Second from Katie. Any further discussion?
Second.
Oh, okay.
No.
Any further discussion? With none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it's unanimous. So we will continue to allow written testimony until Friday, February 13th, 2026, in the same manner. With that, I am going to, I still want to hold, I want to give everyone a chance. Okay, looks like we still got a few.
More chairs.
Yep, probably just making sure we get room. We do have a few empty chairs in here, so if you need a place to sit, feel free to have a seat.
You could sit at that desk over there too.
Perfect. All right, Chris, you want to just take a look and see what we got for stables? Stables. And see if anybody else is. Thank you all for bearing with us as we work through this part.
There are still a couple of chairs. I see
Yes.
one here and one up front here. I know you guys probably can't see them from your point of view, but figured I'd mention that.
Yep, you still have room. Don't feel like you have to sit in the hall. You definitely have room.
Is this the planning board meeting or?
Planning board meeting is down the hall.
That'll help.
They moved from the Carter room. Yep.
This is Board of Health.
So now there's another couple.
Aaron, I'm gonna give Carol's chair.
What was that?
I'm gonna give Carol's chair away.
Oh, yeah, if we need to, we absolutely can. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, so we're ready to begin the hearing. Do I have a motion from the board to open the hearing to receive public comment on the proposed rules and regulations governing horses and stables and to consider adoption, amendment, or further revision?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Katie, do I have a second?
Second motion.
Second from Lisa, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. We will begin, if Joshua Kimball could come on up to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask, I do have comment regarding both regulations. Whereas I'm first on the list for both, do you mind if I combine them as one
We're going to
testimony?
treat the two hearings separately, so
Okay.
go for just this regulation for now.
Absolutely. To the Honorable Board of Health and members of the public, good evening. My name is Joshua Kimball of 98 Thicket Street. For the record, I am not speaking on behalf of any governmental agency or private entity that employs me. I am speaking solely in my personal capacity as a resident of the town of Abington. By way of background, I have served as Abington's animal control officer and for more than a decade as a municipal animal inspector and natural resource police officer in 2 local communities. I am the author of a law and procedure textbook used by animal control officers and animal inspectors, and I am one of 3 instructors for the state's required animal control officer training program. I am considered a subject matter expert in animal control law and procedures by animal control officers, municipalities, and police departments across the Commonwealth. I want to acknowledge the time and effort that the board has invested in drafting these regulations. However, I respectfully oppose the stable regulation because this raises serious concerns about legal authority, enforcement, fiscal impact, and constitutional protections. The board has referenced the Massachusetts State Action for Public Health Excellence 2.0. That framework is a guidance and best practice document, not a legal mandate that is requiring boards of health to adopt enforceable regulations. To confirm that, I've contacted the Director of Animal Health at the state level, Michael Cahill, and the State Livestock Inspector, Sherry Gustafson, and asked whether there is such a requirement. They have advised me that there is no new mandate. However, under Chapter 111, Section 155, the Board of Health may adopt such regulations, may being that operative word, not shall. So it's discretionary, not required. And I was also told that any legislation would be extremely controversial. My primary concern here is enforcement. These drafts significantly expand the authority and workload of the health agent without addressing what formal training, qualification, and animal husbandry, livestock management, zoonotic disease identification, and recognizing animal abuse and neglect. These are all specialized professional functions. We cannot put this on someone who already handles a very large workload. As we know, Abington is facing a big reduction in state aid and the potential for reduced municipal services. We may see that we have to lay off teachers, town hall employees, police officers, and firefighters, which I hope does not happen. So with that, I respectfully question why the board would expand regulatory and administrative burden without a defined plan for staffing, training, and funding. And under the state law, the state designates an animal inspector annually. In Abington, that role is filled by our animal control officer, who already has statutory responsibility for livestock oversight in coordination with the state. They perform livestock inspections, which are voluntary, but do have a method of enforcement for noncompliance. They are done free of charge and focused on public health and safety, the very thing that this board is trying to accomplish with these regulations.
Mr. Kimball, that is the end of your time. Thank you. You, again, are welcome to come and speak of the animal regulations as well. Let's see. Our next speaker, Mary Ann Papasino. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Mary Ann Papasino, and this is my husband, Brian. We live at 609 Hancock Street in Abington. Our family has lived in Abington for over 100 years. We owned and ran Hendrickson's Dairy for many years and have kept farm animals, including cows, horses, chickens, goats, etc., for many of them. Right now, I'm speaking on behalf of the horses. We have 3 horses at our property. I think there's only a couple of us in town that have horses. How can you instill regulations on the feeding and care of farm animals without the proper knowledge? How can you instill regulations on the feeding and care of horses or farm animals? Or make changes to our farm or understand our feeding regimen if you don't have the knowledge? Do any of you on the board have farm animal experience? Would you want individuals coming onto your property without the proper knowledge of farm animals and making recommendations or add fines? Bringing on proposed regulations as outlined would be detrimental to those farms that are trying to survive. Rather than trying to overstep, adding unnecessary yearly registration fees and control of our farms, the focus should be on education by qualified, educated board members. It should include education, I feel, on wild bird feeding as well. They're the ones that they attract rodents, including mice, rats, squirrels, and chipmunks. The high number of birds can increase the risk of disease transmission to our farm animals. I don't see anything in the regulations regarding those. We believe the town should move to a right to farm community rather than the proposed regulations and focus on education by qualified individuals, not deter people from providing for themselves. And can I present this for the record?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
It has more to it, but I just,
No, I appreciate it.
you.
Yeah, why don't you hold on to this for now? Thank you so much.
thank you.
And I apologize because looks like the pen started to run out. Joanne DeMond Harding?
It's me. I live at 183 Summer Street. I'm here, I have no skin in the game whatsoever. I do not have animals. I used to have ducks, but I no longer have them. And I think it's awful that the town, such a small community, is being made to register their animals. I just don't understand it. There's no rhyme or reason for it. You know, it's such a small community that if a goat comes walking down the street, we're all going to know where it's from. And how are you going to actually, you know, if you're hatching chickens, what are you going to do? Name each chicken and get it $10 for each chicken? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I have nothing in writing, but I'm here because I'm a concerned resident of the town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carly Malvesti?
I think I signed the wrong one.
Oh, okay, that's fine. We'll make sure you get added to the other one. I'll make a note here. All right, Judy O'Brien?
I also signed the wrong one.
That's all right. We'll add you to the other one, no big deal.
I didn't know there were two.
Not a problem. Victoria Smith Fitz?
Hi. I'm a longtime resident of Abington, moved here when I was about 9. Spent my whole life here and worked stables and things in the town. I was very fortunate to have that for myself. And back then, there were no regulations, not that I was aware of, but everybody managed. When I was first aware of rules and regulations is when I moved to Pembroke, got my own farm, kept 32 horses there, numerous animals, and I was so interested in all the regulations that were being out there. I got involved with the state and ended up securing a job as animal inspector of the town of Pembroke. Also, animal inspector in Halifax. As far as my understanding goes, I've been out of it for a while, but we were regulated by the state, hired by the town, and the state gave a small salary. Back then, it was like $500 for the year. So you can imagine what that entailed. Pembroke, very, very big town, lots and lots of animals. Ran into a lot of problems that I had to solve myself. So, but it all worked out. And as far as I can see, the regulations are good in one purpose, and one purpose really only, is just to keep track of these animals, find out where they are, especially the horses, outbreaks of West Nile and the like. I did have a chance to do the regulations and stuff on wildlife birds that people kept, you know, wood ducks, pheasants, things like that. I could oversee them, and I could give them some advice, but what it came down to, there's a separate identity to take care of those through the state. And that can get confusing, you know, for a lot of people. But I'm kind of in favor of a tally and stable regulations. And I don't believe there should be a fee for it. I really don't. The people that take on that job, they got a heck of a lot to do. And I'm sure this gentleman to my right here does not want to get involved in that. So, but I just wanted to let you know that there are good and bad on both sides.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of your time. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
All right, and our last resident on this is, pardon me, on this, William Rapsich.
Yeah, I just came to say that I opposed it.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Okay. Folks, we're not applauding, thank you. All right, with seeing no more testimony on the sheet, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing for Stables.
I'll take a motion. I'll make a motion to close the hearing
Motion
for
from Katie to
Stables.
close the Stable hearing. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second from Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. That hearing is closed. And again, further deliberation of the board will take place at a future Board of Health meeting. Moving on to animals, I'm going to give just another 60 seconds to 2 minutes here. If you haven't signed in and you plan to speak tonight, please make sure you signed in at the front of the room. If I see no movement, we'll grab them and we'll get rolling.
Do you want me to go grab it?
Seeing none, Chris, can you go?
And then we'll add the people from that
Yep,
one onto that
I'll
one.
take care of that. Thank you. Just gonna add.
Do I have to have the street address for everyone?
No, I have it.
Okay.
All right. And with that, I would entertain a motion to open this hearing.
I will make a motion to open the hearing.
Motion to open the hearing for animals. I'm sorry, you were.
I will second the motion.
Thanks.
Yep, so second from Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, and the hearing is open. Just a reminder of the ground rules. Any person needs to sign in. Identify yourself by name, address, and professional affiliation. If you have one that impacts your comments, you'll be limited to 3 minutes, and we will not be having repeat speakers. Be considerate of the people speaking, whether you agree or disagree with them. Applauding, booing will not be tolerated, and the hearing will be stopped and continued to another date if it happens. We are not going to engage in dialogue, in testimony, in dialogue with commenters, but we will accept the testimony, and we will accept written testimony up until the 13th. So with that, Josh Kimball, you are on the number one for this one as well.
Members of the Board of Health, good evening, and the public. Joshua Kimball, 98 Thicket Street. To continue upon what I was saying, if there are issues involving structures near conservation land, zoning, or wetlands issues, those issues are already enforceable by the Conservation Commission under the Wetlands Protection Act and Zoning Board under existing laws. Creating overlap by the Board of Health just creates duplicative enforcement and jurisdictional confusion. The drafts also duplicate existing state law regarding domesticated animals. This allows the board to impose a permit when animals are kept in unreasonable numbers or become a public nuisance. This authority is already addressed through the Massachusetts kennel licensing and nuisance statutes. There is no reason for a parallel permitting system. I also want to raise constitutional concerns. These regulations authorized unannounced inspections based upon strictly complaints without clearly requiring consent, a warrant, or exigent circumstance to enter a property. This raises serious Fourth Amendment issues. The regulations require removal of animals if a registration is suspended or revoked. In Massachusetts, animals are recognized as personal property, and authorizing their removal without clearly defined due process, notice, and appeal protections raises concerns about unlawful seizure of property. I also want to note that there is a statutory issue regarding fees. Chapter 11, Section 155 states that stable licenses and fees must be approved by town meeting. The Board of Health does not have the independent authority to set those fees by regulation. If the goal here is to be fiscally responsible, there's no reason to create new regulations that duplicate functions already performed lawfully by the animal inspector. For these reasons, I respectfully suggest it is time to go back to the drawing board and rethink the language and scope of these regulations, engage directly with MDR, the Animal Control Officer, and the Select Board to determine whether existing framework already meets the public health and safety goals and needs. I'll admit current state laws empower boards of health with a broad scope of authority. However, we, the people of Abington, have elected all of you to exercise that authority in a reasonable manner, and these regulations are just not reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Next is Roger Atkinson.
Good evening, Roger Atkinson, 410 Hancock Street. Members of the board, I want to start by sincerely thanking you for your continued service to the town. Your willingness to volunteer your time, knowledge, and effort in order to protect and improve the health of the community is both recognized and appreciated. Having served on the board, both as a member and as a chairman, I understand that sometimes public comments and that you see or hear can be taken personally. I was part of the stopping the transfer station as well as the first smoking ban regulations, so I feel the pain. That being said, the purpose of this comment is not to criticize the board members, but to contribute thoughtfully and respectfully to an important community discussion. My concern regarding the proposed regulations affecting outdoor animals, livestock, and backyard chickens, while public health and safety is critically important, I believe the scope and nature of the proposed regulations represents an overreach of the government authority into private property, use, and family life. Responsible residents who humanely and thoughtfully maintain small backyard farms should not be subjected to excessive regulations that offers limited public benefit while imposing significant financial and personal cost. The regulation would place an unnecessary financial burden on Abington residents through permitting fees, infrastructure requirements, and ongoing compliance cost. For many families, seniors, fixed-income households, such requirements may effectively prohibit the ability to keep animals altogether. The outcome would be disproportionately impacted on residents who pose no health or safety risks to their neighbors. Small backyard farm animals provide meaningful benefits to families, particularly to children and grandchildren. I have 15 that come over and spend time with me at my small farm. Very important part of my life. Caring for chickens, goats, and other animals teaches responsibility, consistency, empathy, and respect for living beings. These experiences offer on-hand education about food systems, nutrition, sustainability, and animal welfare lessons that cannot be replicated in classrooms or through screens. Backyard farms also encourage outdoor activity, family involvement, and integral learning, strengthening the bonds and fostering lifelong values and stewardship of self-reliance. Heavy regulations are effectively prohibiting these activities and could remove these opportunities from children, further disconnecting them from the nature, agriculture, and the origins of their food. For many families in town, small backyard farms are one of the few accessible ways to provide this kind of practical education. I respectfully request that the Board of Health take no further action on these proposed regulations until the residents of Abington have had the opportunity to vote on whether or not the town should be a right-to-farm community at the next town meeting. Such a vote would allow the community as a whole to express its values and priorities and would provide guidance on how to best balance public health, personal freedom, and local tradition. Again, I want to thank you guys for your service. I know this isn't easy, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come and speak here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Next speaker, our Animal Control Officer, Joe Kenny.
Hi, everyone. Joe Kenny, 172 Russell Lane. Couple vested interests in this. One, I do animal control. I do health inspector, like the animal inspector. And I own a business with exotic animals. So I'm probably the only one in this town that'll be affected by the exotic animal statement on that page. Currently, I have quite a few exotic animals. I've seen most of your kids at school events, town events, or anyone that has farm animals here probably brought an animal back to you at some point. I strongly oppose this as it's written. Financially, I don't think the town has the means to even implement this. I think it oversteps the town's right to people's privacy. Shouldn't be in people's backyards. I also think the state itself does keep track and do farm or barn inspections voluntarily. If you choose to want your farm inspected, they can come on out, take a look at your chickens, count them up, and send it into the state. However, it's kept private. It's not a list that's made public. Keeping animals is your right to do. Some people want to eat their animals, right? Some people don't like that they eat their animals. It's your right to have farm animals, and it's what this country was built on. I don't think making a public list anywhere of what people keep in their backyards is appropriate, and I think it oversteps the rights of the citizens of the town. As also stated, I have exotic animals, so this is probably the only one in this town that's probably going to get affected by that, with the exception of the people that might have some random things here and there, quail, pheasant, exotic birds, any of that. I know there's a couple of people in town that have quail and stuff like that. So outside of that, I'm strongly opposed to the bill. I don't think I need to say much more. I've said plenty on this matter. So
Joe, thank you.
that's about it.
Joe.
Next, pardon my reading here, Cynthia,
Wilson?
is that what this is? Wilson, looked like a C. Cynthia Wilson?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say I oppose.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
I just have one question.
If it's about the regulations themselves, we're not going to answer those right now. If it's about the procedure, I'm happy to clarify.
Procedure of
Yep.
finding out this meeting was going on tonight.
It's a posted public hearing. That's it. Let's see. Next, Renee Salamini.
Hi, how are you? Not big on public speaking, but I'm going to go for it. I'm from 184 Russell Lane. My name's Renee Salamini. I am in complete support of some type of animal regulations for non-domesticated backyard animals kept on one's property, particularly in a residential neighborhood. That's really most of my concern. I have lived in my home for 18 years without any animal regulations to protect my rights as an abutter and a taxpayer. Without animal regulations, I am unable to enjoy my private property due to the nuisance in my neighbor's house. My rights should be protected just as much as the people keeping the animals. Town animal regulations help protect public health, the environment, and overall neighborhood quality of life, setting reasonable limits on numbers and types of animals kept on a property, along with clear rules for feed, storage, animal waste management, reduces odors, noise, water pollution, and pest problems. Requiring pest management plans and adjusting animal limits based on a property size helps ensure animals are kept safely and in a way that respects nearby neighbors. Registering outdoor animals also supports education, enforcement, and compliance, creating a fair and balanced system that benefits animal owners, neighbors, and the community. My neighbors actually have about a half an acre of lot with chickens. There was roosters at one point, goats, pigs, ducks, emu, et cetera. And the smell and the noise is quite ridiculous at times. More so kind of in the, the hot weather, rainy time, stuff like that. All of which these animals have escaped from their pens and ended up on my property at one time or another. I do live on 3/4 of an acre, so it's a little bit larger. I have a pool, it's beautiful, I really try to enjoy my time out there. But due to the location and number of animals on my neighbor's smaller parcel of land, which ultimately affects the enjoyment of my property and the property value of my home. And I have plenty of pictures and videos to support this claim. Animal regulations are a common sense approach that helps keep the town aware of what animals are in the town, but also protect neighbors and abutters' rights that are affected by noise, smell, enjoyment of their own property. Most towns have some type of animal regulation, so this is not something new. I can provide multiple examples from other towns with animal regulations if you want. The board should take this into consideration, really the size of the property, the placement and location of the animals on one's property, and the tax-paying abutters' rights. Until you live next door to such nuisance, you have no idea what I have experienced over these years. I invite any of you to come to my house to show you exactly what I have to deal with. And again, I don't dislike animals. I like animals. I just think you need a bigger amount of space if you're going to have them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, Megan Gundel.
Hi, I'm Megan Gundel, 106 Rockland Street. I'm a fourth-generation farmer, and I'm hoping my kids will have the opportunity to be the fifth. I am an active American Dairy Goat Association member and a Massachusetts Farm Bureau member. I have worked in vet care for over 10 years, and I offer animal husbandry assistance to many folks in this town. I would like to touch base on 3 main points tonight. First, Section 5, Part A4, documentation. Mass law has 0 annual testing or vaccination requirements for backyard livestock. Second, adequate housing. Abington has a building code 175-21I4 that goes directly against MGL Chapter 40A, Section 3. This code is just one that I know of that prevents us from building adequate housing for livestock. And thirdly, nuisances. MGL Chapter 111, Section 125A protects agricultural operations from being deemed a nuisance by local boards of health, including odor from normal maintenance of livestock, noise from livestock, including roosters, and noise from farm equipment. You had previously said that you would like to be a resource for animal owners, yet you have presented us with the most unfriendly set of regulations I have ever seen. New animal owners are not going to go to an uneducated board to seek advice. They will call a vet, farm store, the breeder of their animals, or their mentors. You also mentioned that you wanted to have a list of the animals present in the town. I do know, I have a very close friend in Easton, they had a list, it's supposed to be kept private, it was not. PETA showed up at her house, vandalized her barn, and let out 78 animals. Lastly, I would like to know if what the board plans for existing farms. What if a farm that has been operating in this town for 12 years fails your permitting process? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is Erin Ryan.
Hi, I'm Erin Ryan. I live at 124 High Street. I don't have any prepared statements, but I do have 3 points. So I don't keep horses, I don't keep geese, I don't keep runaway goats. I keep honeybees, and I have a bunch of hives throughout town. I have the state inspectors come and take a look at them at least once a year. I have mentors, I belong to a bee club. I do everything by the book, even though there isn't a book. I wonder who on the board would come and inspect my hives? You know, who has that knowledge, who has that years of experience to tell me, hey, I'm doing this wrong, I'm being abusive to my honeybees. And I don't know who would do that. If I have a problem, I talk to the state inspectors, they come out, they give me advice, they give me, they tell me what I should do or not do. But I'm a responsible beekeeper. Second is, I don't want anyone coming on my property who doesn't have permission. It's my property, and unless you're invited or you have a warrant, you're not getting on my property. It's just not responsible. Thirdly is, everyone is pro or con this issue, but no one has been able to tell me why the board at this point has come up with this change in regulations. Unless I've been living under a rock or in a bubble, I don't think that there's been an explosion of animal abuse in town, whether that's, dogs, cats, or horses. So I don't know why the board has proposed this. And that's it. And I'm against it as it's currently written, so thank you.
Thank you. Next is Meg Riley.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? My name's Meg Riley. I'm not actually a resident of Abington. I am a resident of Whitman, but I am here tonight in formal capacity as the agricultural extension educator for Plymouth County. So I've been working in agriculture for over 20 years. I myself am a small farmer. I raise about 30 sheep, about a dozen pigs every year. Not in Whitman. I don't have enough land over there in Whitman, but I'm a leasing farmer in Plimpton. So just a few things. I'm here tonight. One of the things that I do in my job is I do work with town animal inspectors, Board of Health, to try to work on regulations that make sense. One of the things that I would just, say is that a lot of times these regulations come from a really well-meaning place, but sometimes it can be overreaching and really duplicative and not necessary. So Massachusetts, as we all know, as a state, is a right-to-farm state. So right now, the regulations that protect commercial agriculture are over 5 acres. Mass Farm Bureau and other organizations have been moving to reduce that to 2 acres. So this actually probably in the near future is going to become like a more talked about issue, probably not like a less talked about issue. At this time, every town is supposed to be part of a state annual barn inspection. So MDAR already has regulations put in place that already exist for every town in Massachusetts. There are there are actually some regulations, and I definitely understand as a homeowner and as a livestock owner, I don't want people necessarily all up in my business, but there are some parts to the MDR annual barn inspection that do include an annual census of understanding who has what animals. So right now, an animal control officer or a designated barn inspector or a designated Board of Health employee has the right from the state of Massachusetts to come to your property once a year, take a census of your livestock. Part of the reason that they do this is so that when that cow is running down the street, they know who that cow belongs to, right? Another reason that they do this is, obviously, for example, like we've all kind of been through a bad couple of years with the bird flu, right? So if I know that every person in town who has chickens, and I can get on the phone and I can reach out to them and tell them, hey, like here's some things you can do to reduce, your threat of bird flu, here's what you can do. Obviously, too, we've seen stories in the news of people who don't know exactly what they're doing with livestock. They're not being cared to the standards that they should be cared to. But in reality, again, these regulations already exist as a state. And, number two, we should be trying to it's really more about education than a place of enforcement. I think that's like the biggest thing. And, again, like I'm a taxpayer resource for every single one of you guys who lives in this community. And, the other thing too is like working in agriculture, like 1% of Americans grow food for 99% of Americans. Like we need more people to be educated about how to grow food for
Ms. Riley,
themselves.
that is the end of your time. Thank you so much. Next is James Kenny.
Hi, my name is James Kenny. I live at 172 Russell Lane. And I'm opposed to the regulation, especially the way it's written. When we talk about exotic animals particularly, right, that could be a turtle that's in the pet store, right? So it could be all these little tiny things. It could be a bearded dragon that you buy at Petco, right? Kids have them, they're in their house. So are we going to regulate those, right? That's all part of the exotic animals. I am the abutting neighbor to who somebody else spoke about, right? However, I've had the sheriff's department, I've had the Board of Health, I've had the building inspector, and every other agency under the sun come to my property and perform inspections, and we've not had any violations. So I just want to say I'm opposed to it, the way it's written, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Victoria Smith Fitz.
I briefly touched on this part before, I apologize. But as far as the birds and things like that, the smaller animals, exotic animals and stuff like that, that's all up to the state. You can just kind of put that under your hat, I mean, I think that the board would probably be more inundated with calls, like from nuisances and things like that. So I'm not opposed to that at all. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Donna Gendro.
Donna Gendro, 63 Pearl Street. I'm not sure if I'm opposed to it or in favor of it. I do know that there's a rat problem in town, and I feel that somebody needs to just know where the animals are. I know in North Abington, where I live, for sure nobody knows that there are chickens just walking up and down Route 58. So I'm sure that whoever is that careless with those animals probably are not taking proper care of where the animals are being housed. So I feel that like maybe we should just know who has chicken coops and who has animals, just so that if a neighbor is seeing an influx of rodents in their yard that didn't exist, I've lived there 30 years, did not have rats on my property ever, and now this year there are rats everywhere on my property. And this year there are chickens wandering all around my neighborhood. So I'm just thinking maybe that somebody should be able to go and just know that there are chickens or know that there are animals, so that if somebody were to call and say, there's a rat problem in my neighborhood, perhaps maybe you should look into the animals that are being housed in that area to see if they're being cared for properly. I know that if there were dogs and they weren't being cared for properly, people would go and inspect that property and take custody of those animals. So I feel that like livestock of any kind, I mean, I'm not a farmer, my mother was a farmer in Ireland many years ago. I'm not, I have the utmost respect for farmers, and I appreciate what you do, and I think it's wonderful to have animals, and Mr. Atkinson spoke about his children, grandchildren. That's great. If you're taking good care of the animals and you are a responsible animal owner, that's wonderful. But there are people, unfortunately, right now, I feel, in town, and I don't recognize any of you from my neighborhood. It's not any of you, but there are people in town now that have animals, and I don't know that they're being cared for. And I feel like all animals should be cared for and respected, and, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I'm for it or against it the way it's written. It sounds like, after hearing everybody, that maybe it may be too much the way it's written. But I feel there should be something in place that you know that there are animals somewhere, and if there's a complaint, that you can then ask to go onto the property and see what's going on. Just to make sure the animal's being cared for, make sure that things are clean, and that's how I feel about that. And I didn't expect it to even speak. So that's how I feel, and that's that.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. Next is Jason Henningsen.
My name is Jason Henningsen. I'm on 115 Green Street. Just for full disclosure, I happen to be friendly to some members of this board. Chris is my daughter's troop leader for Troop 41. And one of the things that the kids are taught are responsibility. And we have chickens. We've had chickens on our property for about a couple years now. A lot of it's been hit and miss, but a lot of it's been hit. And, we try to be very responsible. And I know everyone here is here because they were being responsible. It's, I don't see an issue with this because all I've been hearing the past couple weeks is people talk about overreach. But it's just the town trying to be responsible, just to show that we're all being responsible, that we're all keeping the food safe from other animals. Believe me, I've before I even had chickens, I one day came out to my shed and I found in my toolbox 2 mice cohabitating in the bottom of my toolbox. No idea how they got there, but hey, it wasn't there in the first place. But unfortunately, rodents, that's a common thing. It's not something new. People, rodents have probably existed since rodents have existed. So I just have no problem. I have no problem with this. Just that I think that if people have issues with when an animal runs loose, you contact animal control. You have an issue with the structure of an animal housing, you go to the zoning board. It's not common for other organizations to be involved with this, but the fact that I've been hearing from people talking about, oh, Chris is going to come on your property unannounced, he's going to raid your house and take all your chickens. It's like, no, everyone knows that's impossible. I mean, he's not going to have we're not going to be like the days of Star Wars where he's not going to have stormtroopers at the town border going up to you going, how long have you had these chickens for? How many seasons? We're not going to have that. So if this needs to be go back to the drawing board and be written in a way that appease everybody, then let it be. But you know what? Just I commend these people for doing their effort to try and do something to help with the town in various ways over the years, and I just feel ashamed that the past couple weeks, a lot of them have been getting crapped on by other members of this town in terms of the government. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henningsen. Next, Judy O'Brien.
Judy O'Brien, 36 West Chapel Street. And first off, I think, try that better. Judy O'Brien, 36 West Chapel Street. And first off, I thank everybody for your positions, the time and efforts that you put into, because I know it's a lot, in working with different people's opinions, so I appreciate that. I am opposed to this regulation proposal, especially as it is written. And I do ask, even though I was on the wrong list before, just to save my circle thing for that one too. Just as a person that is concerned about a little bit of overreach or the way this is written and could go down, I grew up in 4-H. My daughter grew up in 4-H. I have so many family and friends with animals of many different types. We have animals in our backyard, and I can tell you that 100% of everybody I know, and not just in Abington, but on the South Shore, that they are very, very careful. Granted, there is going to be somebody who, may not be as good, but I can tell you that 100% of all the ones that I know, they're careful with the feed, they're careful with care, they're careful with the health of their animals, and I'm just concerned, honestly, about a few people that might just not want to have chickens next to them or something that could cause a little bit of ruffled feathers where maybe it's really not necessary. So I think it can go a little awry, and I'm really concerned about that. And a lot of my other concerns have been issues that other people brought up, and I thank them for that.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. Next, Josh Nix.
Hey, Josh Nix, Shaw Ave. So I didn't really give like a speech, so I didn't really have anything really planned ahead here. Basically, my main issue is, first off, I'm against this. I'm kind of disappointed that I'm even here for this. You know what I mean? This is the thing we're focusing on. It's kind of disappointing to me with all the other issues in the community and abroad. Just this is the thing we're focusing on. But looking through this, I've read through a few times, and it seems like a lot of things here, like a feed management plan, manure management, pest management. Asks for all these things, but gives me no guidelines on what any of these things are. Or it asks me for like a site plan of where my chicken coop is. And now is that, do I have to have a surveyed plan of my yard, like a shed? You know what I mean, to show where my chicken coop is in relation to, or do I need to have the wetlands flagged? You know what I mean? To what extent do I need this? And then also, where I already have chickens, am I going to be grandfathered? So now my coop is, again, if we do establish criteria, my coop's too close to the property line, say, or it's too close to whatever standard there is, and am I going to have to tear it down? That's probably the biggest investment of me having chickens at this point. Which is to say, I got a half a dozen chickens back 6 years ago, and they've been dwindling since at this point. They're livestock people, but like, they're pets to us. They lay like one egg a month, if that. That's really it. They're pets, and we take care of them that way. So it's just frustrating to me. Like I said, that what's in front of me here just looks like a means to find fault with something I did, and then fine me. Which is, like, the fining was it 100, 200, 300, 400, like each subsequent day. So if there's a week I have a deficiency and I can't resolve, you're going to charge me $2,000 because there was standing water in my chicken coop? You know what I mean? And I understand to say, like, oh, we would be reasonable, we wouldn't. But that's not always the case. You know what I mean? I know Chris, I like Chris, but, like, who's to say the next person in his position isn't like that, or they choose to be unreasonable? We've all been in positions where people have come into things and flipped how things are done. And then now I'm at the mercy of this regulation that we passed because we had someone in a position we all trusted. And now we don't, and we're all going to pay for it. Like I said, my biggest concern is it just seems to be a way to just define me for stuff, but doesn't actually define anything that you hope to accomplish. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that tells me what I need to do with my manure plan, or can I be denied? Like, is there a denial process? Or if I fill out this steps 1 through 6 here, put it in, pay my $40, am I issued a permit? Period. You know what I mean? Or are you going to say, oh no, your feed management plan wasn't good enough? What was it supposed to be? You know what I mean? Or can I write anything I want, submit it, pay my $40? Now you know what I mean? Until someone comes to my property and says, oh, this is wrong. But even then, to say, like, oh, this is wrong, how are we going to fairly enforce that without it? Just say it's like, oh, it's unkept, it's excess filth. What is excess filth? You know what I mean?
Mr. Nix, that is time. Thank you.
I apologize. Thank you.
You're good. Thank you. Next is Linda Owings. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. Beth Owings?
Beth Owings, 28 Pond Street. First of all, I think this is literally the biggest waste of your time, that there's far more important things going on in the world that you could have focused on as opposed to drafting this crap. Second of all, the only person that's actually qualified amongst any of you is Joe Kenny. So given that he's paid, I don't know if anybody is aware of this, he's on call 24 hours a day, 365. He also covers Whitman and, I might be speaking out of turn, but Hanson as well. He's not even paid 20 hours a week, okay? But if you call animal control at 2 a.m., that's your guy right there. He might be paid 16, 17 hours a week by the town. You're gonna pay him full-time to do this, to implement this? Because none of you are qualified to do whatever this even is. Where's that money gonna come from? Are we gonna budget that? Before you wasted your time doing a draft of this, a redraft of this, and whatever the heck this is with all this red, which looks to me like you don't even have faith in whatever was drafted initially, because there's so much red through this damn thing. Thank you so much for wasting the copying ink on this. Why not put a vote to the town to say, do you want to be a right to farm town, or would you like the Board of Health to waste time on this crap? By the way, I don't know if it was clear, but I'm opposed to it.
Thank you, Ms. Owings. Next, Jane Matiosis. Jane Matiosis? Nope. All right. With that, our last person, Carly Malvesti.
Hello, Carly Malvesti, 620 Adams Street. I'm opposed to this, and I am employed as the public health nurse for a different municipality's health department, so I do see both sides of the coin here. I understand the desire to have a registration for the purposes of emergency preparedness, you know, monitoring of zoonotic diseases. I get that. But as an animal owner, this feels like overreach. I feel like it's a slippery slope. We are going from 0 animal bylaws with the exception of licensing of dogs and 0 Board of Health regulations to animals to a 7-page document with 3 written management plans required. It just feels like it's a slippery slope of going from 0 to 60. And again, as others have voiced, why? What transpired to suddenly want, you know, extensive regulations? I also, again, coming from working at a health department, I don't feel as though Abington's health department is staffed to handle this, even with the help of, you know, shared services. Who's going to be responsible for this? And I also think it's a red flag that our own animal control officer was against this. I know at least in my municipality and others, it's usually something that you would work together on, and that does not seem to be the case, and that's very concerning to me that the most qualified, as people said, the most qualified person wasn't brought to the table for this. That's concerning, and I think that should concern everyone here. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malvesti. All right, those are the end of our speakers. I have several things to read into the record, which I will now do. Bear with me on through these. This first one comes from the Board of Selectmen, Dear Honorable, or through the Town Manager. Dear Honorable Members of the Abington Board of Health, the Select Board has asked me to follow up with the Board of Health regarding their discussion Tuesday night regarding the draft animal licensing regulations proposed by the Board of Health. As the Board is aware, the Select Board discussed your draft regulations and raised concerns regarding the process and the actual requirements of the regulation and the effect it would have on Abington's residents who have backyard animals. The Board listened to residents at their meeting and after hearing from a few of the residents, Tuesday night expressed their concerns that these regulations are overreaching. The enforcement of these regulations would put an undue burden on the health agent, requiring that individual follow up on a number of complaints that could be filed by residents. Furthermore, these complaints, if brought to court, would generate a great expense for the town's legal budget at a time when we were trying to identify every dollar to keep our employees employed and protect the core services of our town government. At this time, I am requesting the Board of Health provide an estimate of what they think the cost would be for compliance with these regulations. The Select Board appreciates your commitment to protecting the health and welfare of our residents. However, residents are not happy with these regulations in their present form. These are examples of some of the concerns raised by residents. One resident was very concerned about the effect the regulations would have on her daughter, who is a member of the 4-H. Another resident expressed concerns about their ability to freely keep animals in their yards, and one individual raised concern about the Board of Health staff entering their property without a warrant. The Select Board at their next meeting will be discussing adding a warrant article for the Town of Abington to adopt the Right to Farm bylaw at the annual town meeting on May 4th. For that reason, the Select Board is requesting the Board of Health postpone adoption of these regulations or reject them in their present form as presented until town meeting has voted on the Right to Farm bylaw. Thank you in advance for your cooperation and assistance. On behalf of the Select Board, I am requesting that this letter be read into the record as we just did. This next one comes from a Select Board member, Kevin Donovan. Dear members of the Abington Board of Health, I am writing in reference to the proposed regulation of the registering of animals that the Board of Health will be conducting public hearing on Monday, February 2nd, 2026 at 6 p.m. at the Town Hall. Kindly accept this written documentation as testimony. First and foremost, I have read in detail the proposed regulation the Board of Health is considering pursuant to your authority found in MGL, Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 31. I am opposed to the enactment of this regulation, and for the record, please be advised that I do not have on my property any animals that will be affected by this requirement. Once upon a time, I had numerous farm animals and feel compelled to react to your proposal. I had a conversation with you concerning the reasons for this, and you indicated the State Department of Public Health had no way to track bird flu found in domestic and wild birds, and the Board of Health was responding with this regulation in an effort to be able to report the same to the State Department of Public Health. I've raised and kept farm animals for the better part of 40 years, and I find the regulations you seek to impose both arbitrary, unworkable, and an attempt for the government to interject itself onto private property with no justification. Permit me to articulate the reasons I am opposed as follows. I am sure you are aware the town of Abington is in a financially difficult position this coming fiscal year and will be forced to decide on a reduction in services across many departments. However, the Board of Health is now in a position of creating additional work for the limited employee you have assigned to your office without addressing the potential financial reductions that may be required. The regulation requires each owner of livestock to apply to the Board of Health each year, pay a registration fee, submit a management plan, allow for inspections, and possibly be faced with fines if you do not comply. How much more government overreach does your board intend to do for a person who wants to raise a few hens? This is government overreach at its height, and it is an affront to backyard farmers. In the past, state cooperative extension services monitored the effects of animal diseases and were available for consultations to the general public, so I'm unsure what expertise the Board of Health has in such matters. If the State Department of Public Health wants this information, then let it fund the staff necessary to obtain it. I see no need that the town of Abington has to salute and enact unreasonable standards just to satisfy the requirements of a state bureaucrat, and should they point to any state law regulation requiring the same, then I would argue that it is an unfounded state mandate and therefore null and void without proper funding. The governor has not increased state aid to the town of Abington, and yet you are ready to enact regulations that will place an additional workload on the health department staff, charge our residents money to register and subject them to additional financial hardships, all because they wish to raise a few animals for a hobby or otherwise. It is not right, and I urge you to abandon this attempt. It is not right, and I urge you to abandon this attempt to interject yourselves as representatives of the town into private lives of people who only want the right to farm. Kindly reject kindly reject from any further consideration of these regulations and allow the people of Abington the continued right to farm without any more government overreach and interjection into our lives. This next one is from Rick Shepard from Russell Lane. The Board of Health is holding a public hearing to discuss a proposed regulation for the registering of animals on February 2nd. The scheduling conflict will likely prevent me from attending the public, so I'd like to submit the following input for discussion. Some recent reaction to the proposed regulation has suggested that the board is exceeding its authority. The board's regulations, Section 1 authority, cites Mass General Laws, Chapter 111, Section 31 as its basis. Additionally, Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 173 stipulates that a city or town may make additional ordinances or bylaws relative to the licensing and control of animals. It is abundantly clear that the Commonwealth has granted the board a statutory and reasonable authority to consider and propose this regulation. It's important to note that Abington would be far from an outlier in adopting the proposed regulation. Attached, please find a listing with the website links to the regulations that have been adopted by 8 nearby towns, including Rockland, Hanover, and Weymouth. This list is by no means exhaustive. Most of these regulations are similar to and consistent with the language and intent of the proposed Abington regulation. Many have been in place for decades. While not a comprehensive list is what is being proposed, it's also important to note that Abington already has an existing bylaws that pertain to animal control. Bylaws, Chapter 11, Animals, Article 1, Pasturing of Certain Animals, Article 2, Dogs, Zoning, 175-21, Table of Use Regulations, I think it's 1, Accessory Uses, 4. If the argument is the town should not allow animal regulations, then why does the town require the licensing of dogs? Why are there leash laws? Why does the town fund the position of an animal control officer? Clearly, Abington has long since taken some steps to control certain types of animals for the well-being of the town and its residents. Many of the regulations adopted by other towns are cited here, limit the number and type of animals that can be kept, in some cases taking into consideration the size of the lot upon which the animals can be kept. This is a common sense approach. While there may be little objection to homeowners' decision to keep a few small animals on a residential house lot, it's entirely different consideration if, for example, a homeowner in an R20 zone decides to keep dozens of animals of different types and sizes on a residential lot. There are some limits and regulations that towns have a reasonable right to define. The number and kinds of animals being kept also introduces the question of how animals are being cared for and managed. This proposed regulation, like many of neighboring towns, would require the owner to vaccinate animals and document feed, manure, and pest management procedures. Animal feed that is not secured or managed properly can certainly serve as an attraction for vermin like mice and rats. As noted by the Crops, Dairy, Livestock, and Equine program at UMass Amherst, rats and mice have long been a problem on farms where food and nesting sites are plentiful. They are carriers of 45 diseases and are capable of contaminating farm feed and water supplies, helping to spread disease from contaminated and uncontaminated areas and from animal to animal. Many of these diseases are harmful to livestock and humans. Animal waste that isn't properly and regularly addressed can likewise introduce health and odor problems. A year ago this month, DW Field Park in Brockton was closed due to a bird flu emergency. The quote here is, evidence suggests that an avian flu is widespread in Massachusetts and is likely present even in places where there has not been a confirmed positive, end quote. State officials said in a news release at the time avian flu can and has been communicated from wild to domestic fowl. If avian flu was found to be present in Abington, wouldn't it make sense for the health agent to know where domestic fowl were located, to be able to respond to the Massachusetts Department of Public Health guidance and communicate information regarding the threat effectively? Any person who is introducing animals into a residential setting has a responsibility to his or her neighbors to manage the animals such that they don't create a nuisance. Most people don't want to suddenly awake at the crowing of a rooster at dawn if that wasn't there yesterday. If a concern or complaint is raised by a neighbor and the animal owner refuses to acknowledge or address it, then where does the neighbor initially seek relief from, if not the town? In absence of any regulatory framework or guidance, how is the town expected to assess, measure, or resolve a concern or complaint? A reasonable and clearly defined regulation benefits all parties in such situation. My understanding is that this is a draft regulation. Citizen feedback is solicited in public hearings like this evening's so that legitimate concerns and or objections can be factored into the regulation's final form. I think the board is fully capable of considering feedback and achieving a balanced final product. But an argument that this proposed regulation should be rejected in its entirety is, in my opinion, of dubious merit. As noted, the board is only proposing the kind of regulation that many other surrounding towns have long since adopted, all for the same reasons and would make sense here. A copy of those is here.
Thank you for reading these.
This next one is from Kate Hathaway. Abington Board of Health, I reviewed the draft of the proposed regulations for the registration of animals posted by the Abington Board of Health and have a few thoughts and concerns. In the event of a localized HPAI outbreak, I do not agree that an optional registry of domestic poultry owners would be beneficial from both a public health standpoint and for the awareness of flock owners within the town to take measures to protect their flocks. Biosecurity is the top line of defense against avian influenza. And I believe that the Board of Health has a duty to share with the public information on migration efforts they can take to mitigation efforts that they can take to protect their flocks, and by extension, the community when Massachusetts is seeing an increase of cases. However, I am concerned about the repercussions depending upon how the board approaches establishing a domestic poultry registry. If the registry's intent is to disperse time-sensitive information to flock owners as quickly as possible if an avian influenza outbreak were to occur, similar to a boil water order issued across the town, then I can understand targeting backyard flock owners with information. A collaborative effort between domestic poultry owners and the Board of Health is a valuable resource to the community of Abington. If, however, the registry is being used beyond that scope and trickles into bylaws requiring permits to own poultry and livestock with strict requirements to obtain a permit, then I can see little value in what this brings to the community. Ignoring the hardship this will put on backyard poultry and livestock owners, my concern would be how the community will respond. Adding these additional burdens could lead to a public health crisis if community members refuse to consent and comply. Then you open the floodgates of people hiding their flocks, losing the ability to collaboratively work with flock owners if an avian influenza outbreak were to occur. The proposed regulations read to me like a crackdown on backyard livestock ownership under the guise of a public health concern. It feels like a lawyer wrote it and would benefit from consulting with someone with a backyard in agriculture and knowledge of working farms and animal care. Requiring and enforcing all backyard poultry and livestock owners to submit yearly a feed management plan, manure management plan, and pest management plan is a cumbersome process that puts undue responsibility on all. Livestock owners who are already mitigating these issues, caring for their animals, again, there should be a collaborative effort between the Board of Health and livestock owners if any concerns arise, without the board adding undue burdens to all livestock owners in the community. If there are already mechanisms in place to address public health issues or animal welfare concerns without enforcing burdensome management plans on livestock owners and unannounced visits to private property. Now, to add a voice to these words so you can better understand the needs of the community, I'm proud mother of 2 junior Plymouth County 4-H'ers who will be impacted by these proposed livestock regulations. Our family has been involved with 4-H for 6 years, and my daughter is currently involved in several livestock-focused clubs. The 4-H pledge states, I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. The focus of 4-H is hands-on learning projects that center on science and agriculture. We are not fair weather farm hobbyists. My children spend several days a week on farms actively participating in livestock care and husbandry. They are knowledgeable and responsible. We have been in the planning process of goat ownership. If these regulations go into effect, then it will have a direct impact on my children's ability to own their goats in their own backyard. At their level, it is incredibly hard to practice goat showmanship and build upon skills if you do not have direct access to your animal. Bonds and trusts are formed with the daily interaction between child and animal. This isn't a passive hobby, but a passion of love of animals. Passion and love of animals. These kids put their heart and soul into caring for their animals, and it shines in the show ring each year at the Marshfield Fair. We are building community. We share our animals with community outreach projects and community service. Around the holidays, our club brought rabbits to an assisted living facility to boost spirits of residents. On a windy fall day, our kids volunteered hours and rabbits and goats at an event to honor the Holbrook Fire Department. Our club has made appearances at the Marshfield Farmers Market, Kingston Agricultural Fair, East Bridgewater Christmas Parade, and Abington's own St. Patrick's Day Parade. We're the ones with the goats in the float, in case you were wondering. We'll be back again this year. Please prove to my kids that their love of animal and agriculture has a place in their community. The confidence these regulations show when sharing their knowledge and love of animals with the public is inspiring. They're model citizens, and I would hate for them not to reach their full potential over something out of our control when weeks ago it felt unattainable. As an aside, there should never be a barrier between people being sustainable and sourcing their own food. Backyard flocks are essential to a healthy community, eliminating the reliance on factory farming or for fresh eggs. I'm a vegetarian, but I feel the same for meat production as well. A healthy community should encourage locally sourced food. My background lies in veterinary and animal science, also trained in wildlife rehabilitation. The concern about bird flu is valid. I have my own biosecurity protocol with farms that I have adopted as a reasonable member of this community and the farms I visit. Unfortunately, the South Shore has an issue with rats. I have a family living in a neighboring town dealing with the same thing. It's frustrating. I wish there was an easy fix. I myself am planning on building owl boxes to encourage a natural solution. Maybe workshops could be offered for community members that would do the same. I beg that the Board of Health emphasizes to fellow community members to avoid using rodenticide poison. These poisons are fast and effective, but they can have incredibly damaging impacts on the ecosystem and potentially exacerbate the problem if they are intended to solve. If you're going to get more rats, you are going to get more rats when natural predators such as owls, hawks, and foxes die from ingesting poison rats. It's not the solution, just like prohibitively restrictive livestock regulations are not the solution. A fee-free registry for backyard poultry owners in the event of an avian flu outbreak isn't itself a problem. I am optimistic that with a thoughtful approach focused on public health awareness, this could become a valuable tool. But it should not in the future become a pathway for strict regulations. For every negligent livestock owner, there is a bigger, stronger community of farmers doing the right thing. The proposed regulations do not reflect trust in the agricultural community, in town and beyond, and I hope you take the time to listen to our concerns. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Let's see. Just trying to see how much longer we're, okay, all right, it's gonna be a minute. This next one was from Lorraine Ryerson. I've been a resident in Abington since 1943 and have that entire time with animals of all sorts in my backyard. Some farm animals, some pets, some both, like llamas. We raised animals for consumption and animals for pets. I have to make the decision more times than I care to count regarding putting my animals down because of sickness, old age, and a broken leg. One of the hardest was my 34-year-old quarter horse because of cancer. My vet and I had agreed to let her go as soon as we saw she was uncomfortable, even though being treated. That day came, as did the MSPCA. Rather than coming to me, someone called the MSPCA and reported my animals were abused. I allowed them on my property, explained the situation. I took them to the barn area, and from that day was put on their list to foster animals from our area. That ended up black belly Barbados sheep with horns like mountain goats and the llamas. The point I'm trying to get across is if you are not educated in the caring and well-being of farm animals, you shouldn't be initiating laws to tell people who are how to do it. We have animal control in town and MSPCA, both experts in what they do. A neighboring town have a chicken house inspection and commented directly to me, the person hasn't a clue. Let's not waste any more revenue on this. Let the experts continue with their jobs. I feel our little town was run by and for the people for many years. Whitman and Rockland wouldn't even exist if Abington didn't want a bigger schoolhouse build, not once, but twice. We aren't all going to agree, but to watch a committee member take the podium and attack another volunteer member because of their opinion when I said we need to change. We need educated professional experts in the field running our not-so-little town. This is from Joshua Swayze. I'm providing comment on the proposed regulations concerning the registration of certain animals kept outdoors. Please have the following comments read aloud. After reading the proposed regulations concerning the keeping of animals outside, I want to express my opposition to these regulations. The Board of Health is overreaching their authority to regulate the keeping of exterior animals. Additionally, the overly burdensome process proposed, which includes plans for vaccinations, manure removal, housing, and a feeding plan, is an example of government overregulation. Beyond that, how could the town rightfully assert, the authority to regulate how many people would clean their chicken coops? This opens the door to unnecessary invasion of residents' personal space and private property. The proposed fine of $300 is absurd and unenforceable unless there are dedicated town staff that will be policing the outdoor keeping of animals, which no one wants and the town budget cannot afford. I respectfully submit my opposition to the proposed regulation concerning the registration of certain animals kept outdoors and ask those voting on the proposal to vote against it. This next one is from Scott Metwid. Dear members of the Board of Health, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed animal registration regulations. I am writing to strongly oppose these regulations and to express my frustration that this level of government oversight is being considered in Abington. Many residents, myself included, keep a small number of backyard chickens and other animals responsibly. We do this for eggs, sustainability, and to teach our children responsibility, work ethic, and stewardship. These are positive values that strengthen families and our community. There has been no evidence presented that such activities pose a public health threat, requiring the town to mandate registration, feed plans, manure plans, vaccination records, or fines for noncompliance. To be candid, the notion that families must submit paperwork and seek approval for how we feed, care for, and manage a few backyard hens is unnecessary, intrusive, and out of touch with the reality of responsible backyard agriculture. Responsible owners already manage feed, waste, and animal health without the involvement of a town office. We do not need the Board of Health supervising shovel work or parenting decisions. These proposed regulations will discourage families from raising animals together. If that's the outcome, the town loses something valuable. Backyard chickens reduce food waste, cut down on landfill contributions, provide natural fertilizer, and support a more sustainable household. They also give our kids real-world experience that screens and textbooks can't replicate. We should be encouraging more of that, not creating barriers and fines that push it away. The Board of Health has an important job, protecting human health. These animal regulations step outside that mission and into unnecessary micromanagement of residents' private property. If education is the goal, Massachusetts already has an excellent extension and 4-H resources that do that work without imposing fees or threats of penalties. From a practical standpoint, this proposal creates a bureaucracy without solving any demonstrated problem. If passed, it will create friction between residents and the town for no public health gain. I respectfully ask the Board of Health to withdraw these regulations. Residents are fully capable of managing backyard animals without additional government oversight, costs, or paperwork. Abington does not need more regulation for the sake of regulation, and we certainly do not need fines to force compliance with something that wasn't broken to begin with. With taxes as high as they are in Massachusetts, the last thing this town needs is another paid permission slip just to use our backyards. The Board of Health should focus on protecting people, not policing chickens. Next is from Alexander Haggerty. Regarding the upcoming animal regulations debate, I had one comment / question regarding Section 3, wild and exotic animals. One of the comment would be the way that the proposal is written, it would specifically target one business owner in town, Joe's Crazy Critters, who's been in business in Abington for 20 years. Joe's Crazy Critters keeps his exotic animals for his business and even to help rescue animals as shown in NBC Boston, and the link to that is in here. I'd hate to see the town lose a startup and good standing business here that has brought a lot of joy to the community, especially at Abington Celebrates events and more. If a person is keeping exotic animals as pets to walk in the dog park, yeah, I'd say that's over the line. But in my opinion, I don't see that this is the same thing as Joe's Crazy Critters, who is a business and takes extra care of the animals to make sure the public is safe. I think that section of the regulation targets Joe's Crazy Critters out of Abington. If I'm missing something here, please explain, but in any event, I hope the board will reconsider that section so it won't specifically target Joe's Crazy Critters. Joe Kenny brings a good business to town, and I'd hate to see him driven out of town. Driven out of town. This one is lengthy. I just want to see if I can. All right, this is the last one, I believe.
There you go.
It is out of order. I am missing the whole first page of this one. I think, you know what? I got this one. It's this one. Oh, no, it's not. It's just worded. Here we go. All right, and this is the last one. My name is Isabel Manna. I live at 1641 Summer Street, and I'm writing this letter regarding expressing my concerns about the recently proposed keeping of animals regulation draft. For your context, I've been a successful chicken keeper for the past 5 years, and I have done and continue to do significant amounts of research about the best practices for caring for chickens. Sources used in this writing of this document will be cited in the last section of this letter, which we won't read here. But we start with Section 3. The definition of the word domesticated refers to an animal that has been adapted over time from a wild or natural state of life in close association with and to the benefit of humans. Therefore, the distinction between domesticated animals and animals, as stated in Section 3, is incorrect and arbitrary by any other definition of the word and needs to be defined correctly. Additionally, many backyard chickens are treated the same way. Domesticated animals are treated by owners. These chickens are people's pets, and though they may be used as a source of food, they also carry emotional attachment. Under the proposed regulations, cats are allowed to wander freely without registration and supervision. Chickens, who are also domesticated animals under the aforementioned previous definition, have much stricter proposed legislation placed upon them. Feed management plan. A feed management plan is defined as a plan for the keeping and management of food for animals kept at a property. This is a vague definition and does not define what a feed plan should include. Keeper. A keeper is defined in the draft as any person with custody, management, and control of an animal for any period of time. This includes if someone goes on vacation, we'd have to inform the town of who the keeper will be during that time period. There is no definition of what the keeper's responsibilities are or what they are liable for, or any restriction on who can be defined as a keeper, such as age. The word keeper is also only used one other time under Section 4 general requirements to describe them as the person responsible for the pest control plan. If this term is not going to be used consistently throughout the document, it needs to be removed from the document. And exotic birds. There's conflicting information in the document where the definition of domestic pets, exotic birds, are counted, but later referred to as wild and exotic animals are prohibited in the town of Abington. Please specify which way or the other. Management plans. The definition of the management plans are overly vague and do not list requirements or regulation for what constitutes an acceptable plan. Additionally, requiring these plans from all backyard chicken owners is excessive, especially if there have been no complaints regarding the property. The pest management plan does not specify if the pest control team needing to visit regularly will be required. If so, this is a high additional overhead cost, especially when pertaining to small backyard animal owners. There are currently no state regulations for non-commercial chicken vaccinations. Are you planning on implementing your own regulations on chicken vaccinations? And if so, is there another additional unnecessary cost you're imposing on chicken owners? The chance or likelihood of diseases such as bird flu transferring from chickens to human is very low, according to the CDC. There have only been 71 cases of bird flu in humans in the entire United States. In the event that an animal passes away during the year of registration from natural causes, predators, or disease, will the town require owners to notify the town? And how quickly must the owners notify the Board of Health? Will an autopsy be required? Yet another additional unnecessary cost being imposed. It is not clear if you are paying a fee for every animal individually or for the right to be allowed to have any animals on the property. The same site plans. These site plans can cost $2,000 to $4,000 depending upon the property. This estimate is from my mother, who's an architect. For someone who has a few chickens, this cost is not reasonable. The town should allow a site visit as reasonable alternate proof of animal enclosure location, or the town should provide a site plan that's on file to owners to hand sketch the location. The definition for the word nuisance and what constitutes a nuisance needs to be provided. Otherwise, there is no way to measure what constitutes a nuisance, and bias may be introduced into the rulings. This would also open the town to become involved in neighbor disagreements that don't actually have anything to do with the care of animals. Free ranging. The proposed draft states live fowls shall be confined at all times when left unattended. According to certifiedhumane.org, as well as other sources, chickens must be outdoors for at least 6 hours per day, excluding during extreme weather. Expecting people who have jobs to watch their chickens 6 hours a day is not feasible. Keeping them enclosed in spaces for a majority of the day is a detriment to the health and welfare of the animals. As opposed to large commercial chicken facilities, free-ranging chickens reduces tick and mosquito populations and required for their long-term health. Stagnant water. The definition of stagnant water needs to be clarified. Chickens do not require water to be circulated, but they need access to a source of water 24/7. In your proposed regulations, chickens having access to every typical chicken water feeder on the market would not be allowed. Inspectors. The document implies that the inspectors would be allowed to walk on a person's property to inspect it without permission or warning. This violates the constitutional right to privacy, specifically the Fourth Amendment regarding search and seizure. You must have a warrant to enter the property. Infractions. What constitutes an infraction needs to be clarified. Otherwise, this may lead to bias and judgment on the part of the inspector and/or board. Additionally, how can inspectors be confirmed to be knowledgeable about the particular animal on the property that they are inspecting? This could lead to invalid and outside of the spirit of the law rulings. Variances. What qualifies the Board of Health to decide arbitrarily that some people will not have to follow the rules and regulations? Additional details need to be added about what counts as a reasonable variance. Otherwise, this can lead to a bias in rulings and judgment. Is there going to be a separate fee for variances, like property variances? Grace periods. Why is there not a longer time or grace period to allow people to comply with the new rules that may be put in place, especially given the time of year this law is being instated? What happens to existing facilities that cannot be easily modified in order to meet these regulations at the time of instatement? Are they grandfathered in? And lastly, animal minimums. There are no minimums per animal type for this regulation to apply, especially pertaining to the care and keeping of small birds such as chickens. There is a noticeable difference between the management of 2 to 20 chickens versus 50-plus chickens. I propose these regulations only apply to owners of more than 20 chickens, for example. This rule violates the freedoms of backyard animal owners to an unreasonable degree. It is government overreach that is vague and expensive, especially for people with smaller number of animals. It is discouraging and severely raising the barrier to entry for anyone who would want to take care of these kinds of animals, such as individuals wanting to participate in 4-H clubs. Some of these regulations are detrimental to the health and welfare of chickens particularly. This draft in its current state is vague and open to far more overreaching definitions that are mentioned here, and is extremely open to the potential bias of inspectors or board members. It is clear that there is a fundamental misunderstanding of both the financial burden and strain on time management this draft would place on small backyard animal owners. And after this are the citations. That is all of the testimony to read into the record. Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
I'll make a motion to close.
Motion to close the hearing from Susan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is closed. That is also the end of our agenda. We will be continuing discussion about this at our next meeting, which will be Wednesday, February 18th. We will not have a vote on the agenda for that time. We will be continuing discussion related to this. So that vote, as mentioned, we will announce when that happens. It will not be at the February 18th meeting, but we will be discussing these regulations and the testimony that was here tonight. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion to adjourn from Katie and a second from Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous and we are adjourned. So